Are you like there, Ryan?
One thing, it's another.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I hear you right now.
Okay.
I hear you right now.
All right. You
So I know with audio.
You asked me a question about if I think you can curse someone that you don't hate. My answer to that is it depends on the person that's doing the curse and their mindset. Because if you're like extremely just homicidally vicious and stuff, and can get yourself in I want to kill this guy mode without even necessarily having the hatred that people would typically need, you could probably do it, and it'd also depend on what you're using to curse them. Like, there's lots of professionals out there who curse people for hire that they don't even know, and they do end up fucking those people up. Like, a lot. It happens all the time. But usually when that happens, a lot of the times I notice that I think it's with traditions, like when you're dealing with Bakors, for example. Like, it depends on the system of magic also. That's a big factor.
It's like, the biggest question is how to find the spirit who will do the task, because a lot of spirits, when you call them to curse somebody you don't know, they will simply refuse. Or they will say, I am not interested in cursing so-and-so, or don't curse so-and-so. So the biggest question for me is, this is a practical question. Like, bunch of spirits, especially the demonic ones, are not as amoral as it seems. Like, they have their own moral codexes, and then they will simply refuse to do the task they consider to be immoral or pointless. So
yeah, that's another thing.
Not
is if they think it's pointless or not. That's another important thing to consider. Like, I've heard that when it comes to like witch wars, like magical wars between practitioners, I've heard people say that like you can use the jinn for it, but you shouldn't necessarily go to Iblis you shouldn't necessarily go to Iblis for it if it's something petty. If it's like over an argument in a Facebook comment section, I've heard people with more experience with Iblis than I have say that you shouldn't go to him for that, but that you could, for example, go to one of the 72 Afrit for it.
That's like, this is interesting because I actually heavily work with Iblis and the Jinn, and what I can say is that Iblis is a really interesting guy, in the sense that he is always making traits. So, for example, you tell him to curse person so-and-so, and he will always attune that curse according to his own standards. So even he has some guidelines regarding his work. It's not like you just tell Iblis send Jinn so-and-so to person so-and-so and that will happen. No, it is always some kind of a trait and some kind of a deal. And what I can say is that Jinns seem to be, how I can tell, when you send them to curse or to do anything, they are really oriented in a way that benefits them. So if Jinn doesn't see profit in what you are offering, Jinn are really, really pragmatic, if this makes sense. They are really, really earthbound, and so dealing with them, have to take this into consideration. Many people see Jinns as some kind of transcendental being, and I think this has fundamental fallacy. So let's say you ask Iblis to curse person so-and-so, or to destroy spirit so-and-so. He will do so, but for example, when I did the exorcism, on one girl, I had to remove 7 ghouls from her. He actually asked me to perform a specific ritual which will infuse my aura with the smokeless fire in order for him to do some kind of alchemical change within me in order for me to perform that exorcism. And you know that when you do alchemical ritual with entity, energy of that entity works through you, so entity benefits directly. So he's always working in this way. He's always trading, he's always planning, he's always waging some kind of a war or pushing some kind of agenda. Jinns are not wish granters, you know. They won't come to you and grant you wishes. They are really, really pragmatic, and people should be careful while dealing with them. But then there is opposite end of the spectrum, which is 72 Ifrits. They are presented exclusively as some kind of a crazy megalomaniacs wanting to kill people. But in reality, all Arabic tribes before Islam came in, used them as a tribal protectors. So they used, according to what I received, those entities to protect tribal borders and consecrate their weapons of war and sorcerer's weapons to protect the tribes. And that's why those spirits are so aggressive. But if you approach them in original tribal setting, they are really useful. And you can approach them for different purposes. But this is, however, risky because we are dealing with spirits who have really weird way of thinking, to say the least. And you actually need to spend a lot of time with jinns in order to understand how those motherfuckers think. And those motherfuckers, they actually have tribalistic way of thinking. So how tribes work is, tribes work like a family unit. So they need to see you as a part of their family unit or their tribe or their extended community in order to communicate with you properly. So you actually have to approach them in a real weird way, which is a little bit alien to us in a Western society. Let's say you want to contact some of the jinns from the 72 Ifrits of the Smokeless Fire. So the right way to contact them is first contact Iblis, then sign some kind of a pact with him in which he fills you with the Smokeless Fire, then contact the father of the jinn you want to summon, then his extended family, and then when you introduce yourself to all of those guys, to all of his family members and allies and shit, then you call that specific guy you want to call, and then he will see you as a member of his own extended community, and he will have a completely different approach than what is described. Because really...
question, does this have anything to do with their energetic trace then being on you and the jinn sensing that?
It has to do with that, but it's not like just energy. Those jinns literally, they live in communities and they interact with each other and work with each other. So let's say you meet an alien, right? And
yes.
Let's say you meet an alien immediately starts demanding shit from you. And he commands you and bosses you on shit. And you naturally don't like aliens. You think aliens are full of shit. And if alien calls you and starts demanding shit immediately, there is a really big chance you will actually fuck up the alien, you know? The relationship between us and jinns is similar to the relationship between us and aliens. So jinns see us as dumb aliens. They see us as dumb foreigners, literally. And you actually first need to prove to them that you are not a dumb foreigner in order for them to take you seriously. Because a lot of times, people call the jinns up and jinns simply don't take them seriously and they go the fuck away, or fuck up the person who called them up, because they generally don't take humanity seriously. They think we are idiots. They have really, I won't say a racist attitude towards us, but that's exactly how they feel, how a lot of them feel about that. Because they see themselves as a more enlightened race, and they see us really as a dumb aliens, if this makes sense. So first you need to call their superiors and to work with their older family members and shit, and to transform yourself alchemically in order to be taken seriously by those beings. because I had some weird experiences with them, and I know what happens when they don't take you seriously. Like, it won't be a good experience if you don't prepare yourself. They are not like other spirits you find in other pantheon. I think they cannot be put in a box. Yes, all of the jinns have common origins from like similar energy current, but they are really different than spirits from the Goetia or Norse gods or Slavic gods or shit like that. So, what you guys think?
Dimitri, for people that
Well,
don't know,
on that note, that was reminding me of something that someone who knows more about Jinn than me said. Because I had Iblis not too long ago present himself to me through a very, very, very potent and scary vision. And one of the main colors that I saw a lot of green fire. So I asked this person with more knowledge and experience on the Jinn than I have. I asked about that, and what the green was, but I was told that the red/fire Jinn, the Ifrit, who are painful, and then this person told me you have the ones that tend to associated with them, and I was told that that the blue ones tend to be like royalty and teachers.
I've experienced Iblis in his green form. I'm not sure their functionality. That's an Dimitri, to explain to the people that are not aware the war that's going on in the Jinnic realm. Dimitri, can you start at and when he was about in the most.
So I shortly, and I don't have lot of knowledge on this, but I can tell you what I know. So what Iblis told me, and what other Jinn who I am not allowed to say his name told me, is that the reason why Iblis is so fanatical and so aggressive in his war against so-called celestial forces is because he was once one of the most powerful celestial jinns. Now, according to what I know, which doesn't have to be the truth, take everything with a grain of salt, all of the jinn originate from the common source of energy and power known as the Sea of Smokeless Fire. And the first jinn who was created from the Sea of Smokeless Fire was called John, and he was like made of celestial fire. Like he was hyperpotent celestial entity, and he literally with his wife gave birth to all of other jinns. Now, one of his most powerful sons, according to what I know, his eldest son, but I can be wrong, actually wasn't into all of that celestial shit, and he investigated and experimented with the different kinds of energy. And later on, with his descendants, he revolted against celestial jinns and wanted to rule over all other jinns who came into existence after him. And he waged the first jinnic war against the celestial jinns. Now, the war was extremely brutal, and from what I know, the eldest son of the first jinn who revolted was actually winning. But the thing is, after 4 generations passed in the jinnic realm, like, the first son of the elder Jin who revolted lived, and he had 4 generations of Jin after him. And after 3 generations, in 4th generation, the child was born, and since a lot of his family members were slaughtered, he was found by celestial Jins who inspected the territory of revolted ones, and he was picked up and raised in celestial realms. And that child was actually Iblis. Now, Iblis, who wasn't known as Iblis at that time, rose up through the celestial ranks, and he became one of the chief commanders of the celestial forces. And since they really struggled defeating the first revolted Jin, he devised a plan. Now, Iblis, by his descent, was one of the descendants of the favorite son, one of the descendants from the favorite sons of the revolted leader, of the chief revolted Jin, right? So what Iblis did is Iblis presented himself as if he wants to join his grandfather in the rebellion, but in order for him to join the rebellion, all of the Jins who lead the revolt have to come to him and accept him in a formal ceremony. And what he did is he set up an ambush and waited, and when the leaders of the revolted Jins came, he literally ambushed and massacred a lot of them. Of course, the leader of the rebellion survived with ease, but a lot of prominent revolted Jins didn't survive, and they were massacred. And one of the most powerful revolted Jins was actually killed by Iblis personally. Now, what happens then is a little bit weird to me, but since the bloodshed was enormous in the ambush, the leader of the revolted Jins ended the rebellion, and he conceded his realm. He concealed his realm in a way. But Iblis remained the ruler of all of the Jins after the war. He was actually one of the most powerful Jins after the war, since he technically won the war for the celestial forces. But then what happens is humanity enters the picture, right? And Iblis was forced by the celestial entities to give a lot of his territory for the creation of mankind, as well as to give a lot of his authority to new Genic leaders who were born after him and became powerful during his rule, right? So he was forced by those celestial Jins who he won a war for to relinquish parts of his authority. Well, the thing is, he was one of the most powerful guys, and he didn't want to give any of his territory and authority to some other Jins for the sake of creation of the race he didn't even know. So what he did is he technically came to the many of the Jins he waged war against previously and recruited them into his army. And he started his own revolts, right? But the thing is, since humanity is going to be created, he didn't know anything about humanity, so he possessed the husk of still unfinished humanity and put his energy into the husk of unfinished mankind before it was even created. And that's the reason why all of the man has kind of connection to the Shaitanic current and the Jins and shit like that. Because he literally puts his power into the husk of yet unfinished man in order to inspect the humanity. But when humanity came into existence, he made his rebellion 100% open, and he kind of devised a plan to increase his power by making a pact of humanity and unifying with humanity instead of conquering it and destroying it as he originally intended. So he is kind of using humanity to increase his own power, and influence while furthering his own agenda, but if men work with him, they can definitely benefit from it. But everything Iblis does is to increase his own power. There is no other cosmic agenda he subscribes to. And I am not morally judging him for it, that's just information I receive, and lots of people will disagree.
Well, I think to an extent it would be hypocritical for most people like us to judge him for that, so.
It would. So,
every part of his plan is brilliant. The betrayal part to me is alien and I would frown upon, but I find myself under General Command, so I have to concede my opinion for the time being. But sorry for interrupting you, Corbin. What were you going to say?
what I was gonna ask, are we recording right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
You're all right. You have to step off for a quick second or something. We can hold down the conversation.
Oh, no, I'm totally good. I just had no clue.
Yeah, we're recording. Cody announced it, and also this is your episode. Corbin, I wanted you, because Dimitri has to step off for in a minute. And Dimitri, thanks for the gnosis that you've shared. You've shared a lot that you cannot find in any books on the warfare in the Genic realms. How are you on time, Dimitri?
So, I can talk a little bit more, but I am, more interested in what Ryan and you other guys have to say. Because, I have my entire life to talk to myself. I don't want to hear somebody else's opinions.
So this is Corbin Owens' episode. This episode is to highlight him. I wanted Corbin to, Ryan is intrinsically intertwined with Corbin Owens and how he came to the left-hand path. I wanted to hear from Ryan and Corbin how magic started for them, how they came to the left-hand path, how, all this started for you, Corbin.
Well, I mean, alright, I will start. When I first came into the left-hand path, I believe it was after I had, a hollow stint with Odinism, obviously, because of just energies not mixing. I felt nothing from that. And when I was a Christian before, I felt nothing from that. And so, coming to the left-hand path really started for me when I was in this SoundCloud rap organization with some other witch. And he started talking to me, and he was teaching me basic chaos stuff, like Phil Hines, and then Labor Null, all that. And the premise of the whole group was Saturn. And so I get into Saturn. I start setting up some small altar with stuff on it, giving offerings, and just basic things that I thought that he would like, ending up consuming his tobacco and learning the hard way. Multiple things like that, and after a while, it led me to Kane, and this is Austin came in. Austin came in, and he was teaching me about basic anti-cosmic stuff alongside me telling him my own bits of Saturn gnosis and random chaos shit I was throwing together. And after a while, it got me interested in Kane, and I won't talk about that much here because it's not a subject for years. But really, he's just been there the whole time, sort of helping me out through this shit and just bouncing gnosis off one another. And I've gotten a lot of my best accomplishments in magic and my things that I've put together in my projects with some guidance from him, for sure. And so it's really just been interesting.
That's awesome.
I remember when I met you, when I first encountered you, I remember you were all Saturn. You were just SDC 616, yada yada yada. Just going on I don't want to say rants, but just talking very extensively about how Saturn was just the harvester, the end of time, the inevitable conclusion of everything. And, you know, I was not too familiar with him at that time. I knew that, well, people semi-correctly and semi-incorrectly kind of lumped Saturn together with Kronos, and I knew a bit about Kronos, but I had nowhere near the amount of knowledge on that specific subject that you did. But I do remember that after we had been talking for a bit and stuff, I remember you had started reading some Thomas Carlson and kind of messing around with the clip-off a little bit and all that. But when you got into Kane, I remember we had talked about it a little bit and how there were Saturnian aspects and stuff, and I remember talking about the connection between, like, the name Falsifer and Falsifer. But it's really funny that it's really funny that whenever you really like jumped into it, or at least when you notified me that you had really jumped into it, it's really funny that that was around the same time where I was approaching the end of a friendship / coven partnership with a certain unsavory character that I think everyone in here knows, who I had been working with Kane heavily alongside in person and stuff. I just think it's interesting that when I was nearing the end of that toxic, horrible friendship and shit, that the timing was just crazy.
Yeah.
The timing of you really jumping into it being so close to when I finally cut that toxic motherfucker out of my life.
And really seemed like we just fucking hit the ground running with the gnosis about him and further things, and it led to just various other things we've been doing with necromancy, just a whole bunch of experimental shit, because the both of us have had pretty rough times back and forth. It just comes with exile, and sometimes it's harder to come back from that blow, so you're left with little material. And really what we've done is, like, taken a lot of things that were inspired by other people, those same beings and whatnot, and just adding it to our own praxis that is more suited for somebody who is on that exile.
Oh, right on. Yeah, that's funny.
I love the fact of the exile. It's the when I say hell, the infernal, hell, the fallen are the doomed, the damned, those who gave up that part of themselves, that's part of a collective or part of, you know, whatever, and it's embracing that solitude and that self-destructive nature that has to occur for any kind of rebirth.
But like, Corbin, let's say I am a fucking newbie, I don't know anything about Saturn. What like meditation or spiritual technique I can use to tap into that current? Like, I have my own work with Saturnian deities from Slavic mythology, but like I want to hear your, like, some technique you try when you are a beginner on your own path.
Okay, well, when I was just a beginner approaching the mysteries of Saturn and thinking that's what I wanted to do, it was something that I didn't know exactly where I was going with. I was like, okay, is this just the planet? Is this various different manifestations across different cultures that I'm going to approach? And sort of just went by instinct, trial and error, possibly with one of the worst beings I could do that with, because if anybody knows much about the being behind all of these different manifestations of Saturn, is that he is quite cruel and unforgiving at times. That is, if you have no prior relationship with him, if you have nothing to do with him and don't venerate him to any degree. And Saturn really goes into the whole process of entropy, decay, and death. And so if one were to say, go to a graveyard and try to contact someone's dead uncle, or whoever it is you want to get in touch with, and you get that gray essence that seeps into you after time, just that death being on you, then it's going to start breaking you down. Well, we could say that happened to, like, I don't know, we're going to call this guy, like, Abel Dante or something. This guy didn't respect Saturn. He just worked with the dead and used Saturn like some sort of battery, like some sort of force, but really it's the other way around. If you follow this path to its inevitable end, this entropy, this will make you cold. Saturn will make you a tank, he will take you, but it's like an abusive relationship also. Like if somebody manages to land a hit on you, it's all like, oh no, only I hit them. And then he will fucking hurt them.
Yeah, you have to be a little masochistic.
You really, really do, because Saturnian lessons come through trauma. They come through the hard parts, they come through fighting and clawing. And it's not a path easily taken. I don't know why me hating authority, being like a fucking edgy 16-year-old, thought that this was it. Like I was just going balls to the wall with the misanthropic old man. I didn't know what I was doing. And that's the big thing. That's how I found the damn path. I didn't know what I was doing. I was on the internet, I was cobbling shit together like some sort of cracked out coyote, and stuff just started working. I started seeing results, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing shit until I figure out what works. And then I started actually reading the grimoires, and Cults of the Black Cube came into my life.
I noticed that with a lot of this stuff that you're born into it, it's not born into you. Because you take from the time you're born till now, and think of anybody who's genuinely walking this path, they are some damaged motherfuckers. Because, you know, they've been dealt the raw end, you know what I'm saying? They had a choice. It's either this or, you know, absolutely dissolved from what feels like from any kind of reality, any kind of being on any level.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, and only in that sense, do I mean that we're born into it. It is not born within us. You know, it's almost like a nature versus nurture. Well, we were kind of fucked from word go. We didn't have that choice.
Yeah, and what happens there is, I was lost for quite some time, you know, as a teenager, as a small child, just growing up. I was around my mother, who had been brought into Pentecostal church. She had her own rough times. She had, like, the worst life someone could imagine. I mean, at least in the West, you know, shit's different out there. But she had it rough, but what she clung to was a fucking parasite. And it is a being that I will curse and claw and spit at until the day I fucking die. And on the day I die, I will rejoice. Oh, and beyond.
I fucking love that, man. That's fucking beautiful. I used to say that if God would just manifest in front of me, I'd kick him right in his fucking balls.
Austin and I think, have once talked about the possibilities of some sort of right that is so airtight that we could call him down and just, like, fucking start beating up on him or something.
I actually have something for you, which is like that. So
The Ahrimanic current does similar things with the Amesha Spentos.
yeah, but I need to tell you, because this is a really interesting case. So few months back, some guy told me that he went to some Christian psychologist, whatever, and that woman fell in trance, and she was like possessed and shit, and she was in trance speaking to him, and since that day, he was actually having his truth energy center and third eye blocked, and he was constantly panicking, and he asked me for help. So I tried all kinds of shit and called all kinds of spirits, and then me being me, since I wasn't able to solve his solution and to solve his problem, what I did is I like visualized the moment in which that shit happened, and then I visualized that it was happening to me instead of him. So I actually confronted the shit which was attacking him, and it was a specific warrior aspect of Christian divinity, which is specifically designed to block and attack black magicians. And the way I use to destroy that shit is to literally call Akriot. You guys probably know who Akriot is.
Yes, the Major Eye.
Yeah, and then like attack that shit with Akriot with his power. And it worked. And after that attack, I purified my energy centers, which were damaged by this motherfucker. And the guy who asked me for help did the same thing, and attack stopped. So I think it was interesting experience to share. I don't know with you guys what's your cup of tea. Ryan, like you passed through entire Ahrimanic current, so can you share your experience?
What about the Ahrimanic current?
You passed through it. Can you share your experience? He said.
I wouldn't say I completely passed through it. I've gone through, let me think how many, 1, 2, I've done 3 intervals on it, where, each of which lasted, I'd say, each of them lasted, I'd say, 1.5 to 3 months. I never got to the point in it where you start like deliberately attacking the Amesha Spenthos. The only exception was doing the ignition of the Black Sun a lot. I mean, a lot. And with that, you are kind of doing the backwards vibrations of the Spenthos names, to take back, to take the light back from them. So I did do that, but other than that, for the Ahrimanic current, I did some Kunda Yoga with Zohak, Ahriman, Azuhi, Druzhnasu, and I did attack some people with it also when I was on that, and I got some interesting bits of information. I learned how to make some very, very baneful tools. But aside from that, I didn't really go that deep into that. I know I'm going to return to it again and do more intervals at some point in my life, but it's not right now, and I don't think that's ever meant to be my main paradigm. It's a place, it's something I'm very comfortable with, that I adore, and will always do the occasional intervals with, because it is beneficial to me, but it's not my home in the way that working with, say, something goetic or clephotic or canic would be. It's not my home in the way that that paradigm is. As far as I'm concerned, when it comes down to it, at my core, Citra Akra is my home.
And that's exactly how I feel as well, honestly. No matter, I have jumped around to a lot of things just to, experience them, dip my toes in the water, see if this was something for me, and to see if it's something that I could, benefit from and further myself. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, I always come back to what he said, the Citra Akra and the line, because that's where I touch base. That's where I come back to myself. If I ever feel like something has damaged me too much, or if I ever feel like I am just too far from who I am, I come to him, I talk to him, I sit down, and I get back to the core. And I find that's very, very important in my practice, even right now. And there are many others that help me find this balance. For quite some time, I was a very unbalanced person, working with Saturn solely for like a year and a half, just him. And then after a while, I did let Kane in, and that was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, which inevitably did lead to me leaving the Saturnian current, because I had found out that in the end I would just be a snack. While it is very different, he has some plans that just do not completely line up with what I hold in my spirit. And so, one bit of advice I can leave for anybody going into the Saturnian current, just to keep them away from a pitfall, is if you're going to do it, yeah, that's fine, but don't sit there for like hours and hours thinking, oh my god, am I actually worshipping the Demiurge? Is Saturn Satan? Who is he? Oh my god. He is who he is, and he is definitely not Yaldabaoth, so that will actually offend him a lot. if one were to assume that or bring it up to him.
Too many people, even though there's obviously a connection, way too many people conflate and or confuse Saturnian planetary energies, whether it be just working with the planet or, say, working with the Sephira or working with the Cliffa. It's not like that. It's not a spirit, it's a deity.
Yes. When I talk about Saturn worship, when I talk about this Saturnian magic, I mean drawing specifically from the deity within the Black Cube. I'm talking about Kronos, Saturnus, Shani, all of these beings. There are many more. Zuhal, yes. Kayvan, Halil. Some would say Baron Samedi, but I'm not going to get too far into that theory, or else some YouTuber is probably going to jump my ass.
What was that other name again? Could you repeat it? Halil, Kayvan. What was that?
Shani, Zuhal. Zuhal is an Arabic guise of his spirit. And this one is very specifically more linked to decay. And it is a grimy spirit. You could offer dead bats, greasy rags, and carry on, and what would typically be considered filth by Islam. He is typically seen as a deity that one brings their last resort to. Because if something cannot be done by another being, Saturn can manipulate these things and pull his strings like he does, and warp their own influence for his gain. Being your gain if you petition.
I'm not trying to interrupt you, but I got a small question. I know I wasn't here all the way from the beginning. So when I work with Saturnian essences and powers, the way that I have to keep a balance of sorts with it. So I started off working with Cain, with Tubal Cain, blacksmith, to teach me the strength and the resolve of my will and how to harden it like a gem. And then I was learned through awakening of the flame of Iblis within myself that I gave it consciousness and awareness all of its own. And then when I started working with Saturn, aka any of the phases of death, decay, rot, filth, and stuff of that nature, then I was able to more aptly be able to harness those energies a little bit better and actually be able to willfully direct them in the direction that I so desired. Do you use anything similar to that?
Do I use anything similar to just general practices?
Not necessarily to balance it, but to harmonize all those forces, because there's a lot of things that happen, and I don't think, not necessarily a warning should be given about it, but I think that there are a lot of people that don't truly understand what they're working with when they're working with Saturn energies or spirits.
Yes, okay.
And so it totally will sneak in and rob them of their entire life, basically. I mean,
their entire life,
come in and wipe out relationships, finances. It can destroy their physical bodies. I mean, there's so much shit it can cause and do. And if you don't know that before you go to tapping into it, it's like I love all these books that keep being put out there. It's like, that's the next fad, and yet at the same time, no matter how much material they're putting out there, people don't fully understand some of the shit that they're doing, what it does, and the prerequisites that they need to even be able to practice something without fucking themselves over. And so I always think that a harmonizing factor should be brought in, and that's what I was trying to ask.
A harmonizing factor, yes.
Yes.
And one thing I think about this, and just a little insight to throw in there that I could bounce off of, is that Saturnian energy is something that's very harsh and entropic, and it will sort of pervade and soak into the other things it's around, and it's overwhelming, it's very heavy to massive. It is dark, and it will cause trauma and depression, and a lot of pain, especially chronic stuff, sicknesses. It is restrictive, and all of these things may sound bad to have around you, but the thing about it is, to make any sort of movie reference, imagine, you had some weights on you constantly, and you were just constantly wanting to push forth. If you have a burning fire inside you that is ascension bound, whether you know it or not, you are going to be drawn from that if it is strong enough. Otherwise, it'll just flicker on and get caught back into the system. But with this, it was like me constantly trying to claw through this muck to grow, and when I got out of it, everything just started kicking off. My relationship with Satan and Cain and all these other beings just really started going ahead, and I was finally getting this psychic growth that I wanted, and I just keep going. And so now it's an issue with me to bring in so many things to my practice at once. After for a while sticking with one thing, it gets chaotic. But I find that my knowledge of psychic vampirism really helps me with this, because with all of these energies around me constantly, all of these things that are typically very inimical to life and human existence itself, is you have to digest them, you have to work with them somehow, you have to get somewhere so that you can survive. Really, that's what happened to me. I was constantly saturated with that, and so the survival kicked in, I guess, and it sort of forced me to like seek out psychic vampirism and start working that way to develop these skills within myself, so I didn't get completely oppressed by this black gnosis. Because while the mysteries that Saturn can teach you are very, very strong and like unmatched by a lot of things, they have a heavy toll. They will wear you down, and you can just, for lack of a better word, get black-pilled.
You know, that's funny. That's, psychic vampirism is how I survived it, and how I have survived it for the last 20 years. It was probably one of the very first things taught to me, actually, was like a lot of the spirits that you work with, they'll teach you how to get this and how to obtain that in your life and blah, blah, blah. You know, the picket fence and all that crap. And then you've got spirits that will literally teach you how you survive on different levels. You know, life after death. You know, how does the shade survive even after a physical death? So forth and so on. Well, just because that's after you die doesn't mean you can't use that now. Now there are tons of techniques and things that we can do now. Everything from the feeding of our shades and shadows to our own Vobiscums and so forth and so on. One of the coolest things that I've recently been working on for the last couple of years is understanding it from a void perspective. When you're on this side of the void working it, what you're dealing with are like echoes, so it's not exactly perfect. But if you work on the other side of the void, what you're doing is you're working from the source itself. And so that the knowledge and the understanding is a lot more complete. The difference is it cannot exist on this side like it does on that side. It's an imperfect copy, if you will.
Yes.
And I employ what they refer to as the serpents of the abyss. And I'll be honest with you, in Ahrimanism, the closest you're going to get is Manasa. Manasa teaches the way of the serpent. And, you know, she's fucking awesome at teaching you self-empowerment and how to take advantage of every moment, of every day, of every action you take to empower yourself. You know, that's
beautiful.
why I walk the path of the serpent, and I have for years, because it is not necessarily because of its attributions of being the path of the wise and so forth and so on, but because it is the crooked path. It is the path where you learn through imbalance. You know, if you're someone like us, first off, you're not exactly balanced. You know, and you're not exactly looking for balance. You are looking for harmony. You need the forces to be equal in power so that what you're pushing out is equal by the amount being pushed in, so that you actually grow and become. But the serpent also teaches us regeneration and renewal. And that's why it's such a powerful, I don't care if you look at it as an archetype, or if you look at it as an actual force of power within existence itself.
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, everyone here probably knows that Saturn is not like any of the other 7 planets or 9 planets, you know, whatever you use there. So I just wanted you to just elaborate a little bit further. What are is Saturn related to the void? Is it related to the black sun? And third and final question, you consider Saturn a cosmic deity, anti-cosmic, acosmic deity,
Anti-cosmic.
or is it its own entire thing?
Anti-cosmic, but not in the way of, say, the Path of Smoke is outlined by Curtis Joseph, or the 218/182 current from, well, you all know what that is.
Yeah.
It's not anti-cosmic in the same way as that. And it's also, actually, no, I'm going to retract well, I don't have to retract. I'm not going to say what I was about to say, but with Saturn, it's less of a dissolution, return to chaos thing. It's less of like a dissolution of all things to the no thing, and it's more of just like a lot of people, they hear the term anti-cosmic and they're like, oh, those people want to destroy the universe. But anti-cosmic, in my opinion, anti-cosmic thought in its most elevated form is actually not that really at all. It's a gross oversimplification that lacks nuance to say that anti-cosmic just means you want to destroy the universe. But Saturn, in my opinion, in my experience with him, is, however, what most people take at face value when they hear the term anti-cosmic.
Yes,
Like
he
that
wants
deity
to
was
blow up
literally-
every atom, essentially. He doesn't want things to be in their full liberated state. He doesn't want a non-existence, a state with no boundaries, a no thing. He doesn't want this beautiful, unbridled thing. He wants everything reduced to cosmic ash, basically, like gone.
Yeah,
like turning off a fucking light switch. The reverse of Yahweh's first act of let there be light.
It's less turning off a light switch and more like aiming a BB gun at the light bulb, really.
And to myself, Saturn is more like a jumping off point. He's the hidden gateway, but you have to be able to look into the eye of the eye of chaos itself and go beyond it. You have to melt. You literally have to melt through it.
Fuck it, I'm gonna say it. He didn't like it directly say it with words, but through a vision, he made it quite clear that he does quite literally want to blow up this planet. Like physically, like I'm talking, I hate to use this comparison, like some Dragon Ball Z shit. He wants to blow up this planet, and then the next, and the next, and the next, and then the stars, and then the galaxies, and then the nebula, and shit, and like start like popping like little like vacuum bubbles and shit, and like shredding atoms, like.
He just wants to come through and unmake everything. And it's the path is something that you need. You get on there, get what the fuck you can. But if you are a person who happens to come across Arthur Moros's book Cult of the Black Cube, do not do the Rite of Chains, or you will end up no better than somebody right back in the reincarnation cycle in this cosmic trap. That sounds just like a more entropic existence. Sure, you are one of the quote-unquote exalted priests of Saturn, but what the fuck does that mean if it's just to be a snack?
So, I personally don't I work with Saturnian force as it is presented. Like, I will tell you what my experience with Saturn is. My first experience with what you can describe as Saturnian force, serious first experience, was with Ahriman and Asha, which is the path of smoke. And I was really terrified. We can see Ahriman as masculine aspect of primal Saturnian power, and Asha here as the feminine. Both of them are kind of closely connected with the darkness, so we can see them this way. But I wasn't satisfied with Ahrimanic perspective, so I seeked out my native Slavic mythology and what kind of deities Slavic mythology has to offer. And I was guided to one witch from my, let's say, local area who works with the deity known as Morana. Now, Morana is literally not the goddess of the dead, but she is the goddess of ending life. She kills that which lives, in order for the new life to be born. She usually appears as a woman with the sight, but she is not Santa Muerte type of the deity. She is a really deity of ending life and bringing upon death. She is goddess who brings death upon. And when I called her up, I felt for the first time the pure Saturnian. And I worked with her. And the chant for calling her is simply Mora, Mora, Morano, or you can just vibrate the word Morana, Morana over and over again in a sacred space, if anybody wants to contact her. So, in the Slavic lore, she is known as the goddess of winter and earth, and she is known as the female consort of Chernobyl. Now, if she is the destructive and murdering aspect of Saturn, then Chernobyl should be limiting and governing aspects of Saturn, because Saturn has two aspects. One is murdering aspect, and one is governing aspect. And those two aspects are represented as two deities. Of course, Morana is attributed to other planets than Saturn, and Chernobyl is attributed to other planets than Saturn. But they are mostly attributed to that dark kind of Saturnian energy. They are deeply involved in that. If you guys understand what I say, maybe I am confusing a little bit. So I don't necessarily think that Saturn is wanting to destroy the world. His job is to create opposition to us. Okay? He is the spirit of hardship. It is the current of hardship. And if you don't resist, hardship will destroy you. But the purpose of hardship is to create you opportunity for opposition. So I don't think Saturn is hating humanity or that God is hating humanity. I simply think that we don't know how to resist. And I also think that Saturn is fundamental for sorcery. Morana is fundamental for sorcery. Because she defines sorcery as controlled near-death experience. In order to cast true spell, you need to know how to die, you need to know how to enter that state between life and death, and that's what I am trying to do right now, or when I am working with her. I noticed that she is literally hating all of the deities and casting out all of the deities who are not attributed to Saturn. For example, you can work with planet Chernobyl together with it. But if you try to bring up any kind of other energy, she will simply try to remove a deity from a state. So Corbin mentioned that we work with only Saturnian energies for a year, and I think it's ideal. But pure Saturnian divinities don't tolerate other forces around them. So what do you think about this, guys?
What I do think about that is there was a period of time where I had to share a small altar space for both this Saturnian being, Saturn, and the Reaper. And so I had to do this, and for whatever reason, they, I guess, had some sort of understanding. Just made it work, and the energy swirled up into some sort of vortex in the middle, and it worked for me for the time being. And with that, with the hardship that comes with Saturn, I find that it is useful. It's more like a stereotypical turn you into a man sort of thing. I get the Saturnian thing in my life right now. The main thing that is causing these tests for me that continue to make me grow is the Cliff-Off. But with the Cliff-Off comes extended ascent. I'm continuing to go somewhere so that I'm not like blind, but constantly, surviving and blocking hits. With Saturn, I would actually recommend him for somebody who just wants to stay alive, wants a being to protect them, wants to ensure they stay alive. You're going to go through some rough shit, but nobody's going to kill you. And, well, at the end of that, you get consumed, but what's an afterlife anyways? That's who if you want that, I will recommend the Saturnian Divinity as that.
I'd like to throw something out there. In iMagic, you take Yesod, the cubical stone of Yesod, as a matter of fact, is the stone of creation. So it's the cube of creation, whereas Saturn would be the cube of the anti-creation, or the destruction of creation itself, on the other side of the abyss, if you will, so to speak. Second off, I really loved what you fucking said, Demetrius, because I totally get that. At the same time, I also understand what Corbin's saying too, and I think that if we take a little bit of both y'all's concepts or ideas in this, we get a lot clearer understanding of it. And third and finally, Demetrius, I could sit and listen to you talk all day long, man. I love your accent.
So, I need to go, guys, but I definitely appreciate this conversation. And I still trying to understand your perspective in Saturn, because maybe I am like them, that's fact, but I have like more to do. Like, I see the energies as part of nature, and we never get that anti-cosmic thing. Like, I even see Ahriman as a part of nature. So, Ahriman appeared to me either as a black Persian guy, or as a wolf-like bestial figure with like scorpion's tail and shit. So I think every energy is a part of nature and works within nature, and nature cannot go against itself. It's a compact system. But I definitely resonate with that which comes with Saturn and all the tests which surround, and it kind of changes you and makes you into an apex predator. Like, one of the main initiations I get to pass with Morana is I get to pass first course with the intention of killing somebody, and it severely damages the health and the existence of the person. I actually do it. Guys like me visualizing it like other people seeing, and then asking what's happening. And it really turns you into an apex predator and learns you to tap into it. But I don't see it as like some misanthropy or atrophy or whatever. I see it as a necessary part of nature. Like, if you ever saw wolves eating sheep, I don't think wolf is a tropic or mesotropic. Wolf is just eating his shit, you know. It's part of cycle. The same thing with Morelli, with Saturnian Divinity and whatever. They are all just part of the cycle. It's all part of the bigger thing. I don't see them as something alien or anti-cosmic or whatever. And even if we look at Zoroastrianism and Zoroastrian view, the truth is, like, one man and a poor man that can fuck all of the time they want, but both of them know that nobody will ever actually win. They will keep fighting for eternity because they actually balance each other. And Ahriman will be bored as fuck if he doesn't have anybody to fight. I mean, Ryan saw Ahriman, and I think he agrees that Ahriman is bored when he doesn't fight. Like, that fucking deity is constantly picking up fights. So I think it's all part of the same cycle. I don't resonate with that anti-cosmic thing and destroy the universe thing, because I honestly think that cannot happen. The universe cannot be destroyed. It's all part of the big game. And we are fucking like idiots. We do not understand game. I don't have any idea what's happening, but like, the only thing I have to say is that once you try pure Saturn, you have difficulties adapting to anything else. So guys, how you solve this problem? How to adapt to something which is not Saturn after the Saturn?
How you adapt is really to just try your best to try to get out of the mindset. Honestly, I would say what I would say is that after you finish, if you are doing this in intervals, I didn't have much experience with intervals, but after you are going into a period where you won't be working with a very Saturnian being for a while, cleanse yourself in your space, and I would also suggest to keep an altar of any Saturnian being away from anything demonic, glyphothic, etc., because Saturnian beings just eat anything with an energy signature. Saturnian energy just consumes it, is entropic. And there are a lot of the issues that come from people misunderstanding me when it comes to like Saturnian magic is what I'm saying is specifically working with different aspects and the current of this one source being that was regarded as this is a titan that I speak of. That
But
means just one of its bases.
Okay, but will you be considered a Saturnian entity? Because she came to me in a Saturnian form. But does she count as manifestation of this form or not? Like I am because if you want to change Saturnian, or if you change then it makes sense that I cannot work with anything which is not similar to her. Then, because I really have problems working with anything which is not Lilith-like in some way.
I'm sorry, Dimitri, you've been cutting out a lot, and I didn't really hear much of what you said.
Can Lilith be considered Saturnian entity in a way? Like in your opinion or in Ryan's opinion or whatever.
So like the relationship between like I heard you say something about Hecate and Saturn, I think.
They had they do have something of a relationship that is confusing to me, and I still don't fully understand it. But I believe that in the grand scheme of things, Saturn saw that he was going to be deposed and gave his ruling portion over chaos to her while he's like imprisoned.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's the case.
Yeah, I don't have much input on that subject either.
I think sometimes myth and what we're using as myth to tell these stories, I think that they're important because they teach old lessons that have been forgotten throughout time. But I think that we have like almost an inaccurate retelling of the ancient myths. And, you know, that's why I've never knocked people who like say, oh, they believe this or they believe that. And this is why they believe that this being is over this and so forth and so on. Because it's all part of living of that living myth that was passed down. And there are secrets and mysteries that can be unwrapped and unraveled and remembered.
Sorry, I was talking to someone in the background.
Yes, I definitely agree with that statement because with all of these myths around, especially if you were to look at a being such as Hecate, I won't go too terribly in depth about her because my girlfriend could tell you a lot more about that subject. But for me, I've been working with her for, I think it's been like 2-3 months now, somewhere around there. And there's so many myths about her creation, same with Pan, same with Saturn, and just the genealogy. Of course, every Hellenist will try to tell you that Zeus fucked everything under the sun and fathered everything, just to impose him as some sort of supreme being, when I don't see him as too much more than an ass. I'll just go on record saying that. But, you know, all these retellings really serve to fit one more whole truth. And that's honestly what I think about the majority of the pantheons and the majority of the myths and the majority of the books that I read on all of these ancient civilizations, because all of these things have mirrors, but I believe it is more a cluster of these things on one side and a cluster of them on another. From my polarized viewpoint, I would go out and say that I'm polarized because I am. And a lot of people don't like that, but it's just how I feel. And it's what I've come to see. There are modes in this place. There are modes outside of this place. And there are energetic impulses that have many, many, many pantheons behind them. And there are opposing energetic impulses that have many, many pantheons behind them. And all of these things are just coming down from above and filtering themselves in a way that humanity can understand. And they are mirrored through our own folk tales and through things that, say, a man could relate to. Say we've got some wind god, and this wind god comes along and he gives a man a fish. And this guy's like, thank you, I've eaten. I have a fish. And so, no wind god ever gave this man a fish. Fish is just something that humanity likes, to oversimplify it. And so, they're trying to show that so-and-so is generous. And really, I think a lot of things are like that. All of these are like a puzzle, like a web, that in the middle is the truth.
You know, I'm going to say this. I like the way you worded that. You know, I can respect you for being polarized and finding something that works for you. It doesn't matter what you believe, only so much as that you believe. You know, I've said that for like decades now, and I'll continue saying that. You know, it doesn't matter what you believe, only that you do believe. And the reason why is because that's the foundation and the center point that you're always going to have to come to make your magic work, or to make whatever it is that you're tapping into work for you. You know?
Yes.
And if you find everything, if everything that you desire is fulfilled through the path workings and the myths that you're following and that you're working with, dude, I say good on you, man. Keep doing what you're doing, you know, brother?
Absolutely. And one of the things Austin would definitely tell you about me is that in the past I was a person who doubted myself a lot. I would go as far to call myself spiritually blind. I would constantly have all of these things bad to say about myself while complimenting myself. And it was just this constant action of my own mind limiting me that kept me from getting results. And I was wondering why I was like fruitless for a period. And it was just my own fucking mind. When I stopped saying these type of things, and when I stopped, like, fucking just letting all this shit out, and I started putting a filter on my subconscious, I was able to manifest well. I was able to start making these psychic increases and making these insights and having validation in my own gnosis, and it was lovely. And so that's what I constantly seek. I seek to make my life be in harmony with my spirituality, so they can just serve one another. I don't use spirituality to make my life better. It's more like I use life to make my spirituality better, and so on and so forth.
That's fucking awesome, man. I like that. You know, like I was saying before, man, as long as you've got a grasp on it and you know how it works for you, that's the way it works for you. You can't let anybody else tell you that you're fucking wrong, because you're not wrong. They're just not you, and they're not living your life, and they don't have your reality at play in their universe. So, hell yeah.
Exactly. And what you'll find is in a lot of online communities of witches, of occultists, or whatever the fuck somebody wants to call yourself, somebody's going to tell you that you're wrong and they're right, and you're going to have an endless fucking sea of these. But at the end of the day, what you produce and what comes to you is your subjective reality. And you know what? If it's not how you want it to be, fucking change it. That's magic.
I see so many different magical practices and paths that everybody walks, and I am fucking in awe at how they make it work and how it works for them and how beautiful it is. You know, no matter how sinister and dark and blah, blah, blah. But I always have to come back, and I always remember this is the path I want, this is my path. And and I'm enjoying the view every time I get to witness somebody else's myth brought into reality, and then I'm witnessing, its effects on the individuals. And as I meet all of you, as I meet other people, so forth and so on, I keep noticing just how vast this whole thing is. And, and that's important to me, And it's also a part of, like you were talking about when you're saying, these things you used to program to yourself, and it wasn't until, you put it through a filter that, you started removing those things, and those things are no longer an obstacle to you. Well, the same thing goes with anybody who might be out there listening to this later on, you know, that it doesn't matter what path you're on, but whatever your path is, stick with it, you know what I'm saying? I myself, I've applied so many different things from so many different practices and so forth and so on, and I've made them work because they work seamlessly, because I'm not trying to make the square block fit in a round hole, you know, I'm finding the pieces that genuinely fit. And,
Yes,
you know,
seriously.
and not just necessarily paradigm, because there's a lot of things that I work with that honestly, they don't share paradigms, but what they do is they share a current and a force. And that's all that's important. Now, the next part is for me to understand how do those things reflect upon my own inner self, and then how do I exhibit them in my physical reality.
Yes. And I will definitely say is beings that you work with, you start to take a likeness to, and so you're going to naturally seek out what you want to become, what you want to be like. And within my main practice, it is not only ancestral, but it is more so I am becoming this. I'm constantly invoking him, and it is something that I am striving towards while carving my own path. I am taking what I have found from the foundations laid out before me, from beings and people and books and whatnot, and all of that somehow fits if I'm using it. Otherwise, it's not something that I'm going to come across. My own sentient black flame and my own will seeks out what is like.
I think that oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ryan.
But that's pretty much exactly where I am, damn near. I couldn't say it much differently. I couldn't say it much differently about. So.
Well, I mean, it's like some of the stuff that you shared with me, Ryan. I mean, holy crap, dude! I can tell from looking at it that you didn't like copy paste that shit from somewhere else. I can see so many different influences at play, but there are forces and powers that you pulled into yourself that you recognized as being crucial or an elemental aspect of your own personal desires that you wish to manifest. And dude, you just tapped into them. You know the basics of how you do that, and then you're working with them. You know, and I think that we as Black Adepts, as left-hand path practitioners, whatever term you use for it, I think that that's truly all it is we're taking all these lost and forgotten concepts and ideals and teachings and wisdoms, this knowledge, and we're applying it, you know, in our own personal practices.
Yes, of course, and every person that we encounter along this path and everything that we take in one way or another is making us who we are and bringing us closer to who we are, because through that subconscious filter, we'll discard bits and we will throw things away and things will become changed and transmuted. But at the end of it, at the end of your life, that's who you were, and if you stay as close to your spirit as you possibly can, that impulse that's deep within, I think that you're doing it successfully.
Yeah, it's like I'm not trying to win no good guy badge, but when I see people that come to me and they're like, you know, oh, I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that, well, my first go-to thing is to urge them to continue. You know, don't stop, don't give up, don't quit. You know, because they're not going to discover their capabilities or their strengths or their powers or even their weaknesses unless they do fully go through it, unless they fully walk and immerse themselves in it so deeply that they become these things that they're praying to or that they're lighting a candle for or whatever. Because I walk a very unique, different path than most people, and it's all about the instilling those powers of these spiritual beings and entities within my own shadow self. And it's all to become, and it's not necessarily to become, but to craft a certain aspect of some parts of the system that I employ and that I work, you are trying to create something that even after death, lives on. Only not just lives on and you hope that it works. No, you have to like consciously craft it, and then when that day comes, your consciousness passes over into it and it has its own form. We're not waiting on heaven to take us and give us a new body and all this other bullshit, that I heard as a child coming up. And I despise people who make others feel good with fucking lies. Oh, it'll be okay. No, motherfucker, it might not be okay. You might need to, lower the boom down on this motherfucker who's starting shit with you, because that's not just going to go away. Fuck turning with teeth. But then again, you have to have that balance that, to understand when you have to apply that force and when not to apply it. Because sometimes it's just some dumb son of a bitch that you have to hit really hard one time to get their attention. And then sometimes it's literally going to be somebody you have to literally fucking take out because they're just ignorant, completely, and there's no other way about it.
Yes, exactly. That is the case. There will be a lot of people on this path, especially if you're in some sort of community like we are, that will try to tell you what you're doing is bullshit, what you're doing is wrong, and what they have is right. And some of these people will become aggressive with you, belittle you, or threaten you. But I can liken this to the situation when I was at odds with a O9A affiliated Nexion. All I had to do was put a serious attack on the leader and withstand whatever he threw at me. And then within time, I was getting calls to join. I declined this because it's not what I wanted to do. But, I put that lasting impressions on somebody. And what we need to realize is, community or not, when you're staring death in the face, when you're taking your final breath, it doesn't matter what Joe fucking Schmo from Become a Living whatever the fuck said on the internet. It matters where you are in spirit, and it matters what you did. So, what you can do while you're on this earth, because you have a limited time before you get thrown back into the fucking, bingo machine and back into some other body. You could be a Christian, you could be a bug, you could be whatever the fuck you want. But you know what? You have a limited amount of time, and if you have the realization in front of you that there is something more and something you can do to get out of a blatant trap, then do it. Don't listen to Joe Schmo. Listen to your inner flame.
Oh, completely agree. Yeah, completely agree on that. And there was one subject I wanted to bring up. I can't remember what it was. If I don't think of it soon, it probably wasn't meant to be a part of this video. Oh well.
Oh. Is there any more questions anybody had?
Not me. Fuck. What was I about to say? Oh, great. I'm having brain farts again.
Alright. I think we're good to conclude here, and we could possibly just cut that little section off the end. And be perfectly fine.
I'm cool either way.
Alright, sounds good.
I apologize for being so late. I really did want to make it for this one.
That's alright. There will be more to come.
I'm just glad you still ended up showing up, though. You still showed up, so...
Of course. I'm really glad to have you, Waylon.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
I have no problem with the idea of, people coming and going as videos go and shit. Anyways, I mean, people do that on YouTube with live streams and stuff. They have one person on, someone leaves, another person comes on. That can work.
Yeah, it can. God, see, are we still rolling?
Yeah.
Alright. Could we possibly conclude it?
Yeah.
He's like, I gotta go.
Yeah, no. They just got back from the butane. I gotta take me a dab.
Cool.
Oh, I hope we don't get no strikes because that whole become a whatever the fuck. That was funny. I'm not gonna lie, I laughed my ass off about that.
Oh
Why
God.
become something when you already are? We're in the process of remembering that we're greater than what we could imagine.
Yes, go and find it.
Yeah.
You don't need to spend like $600 to buy it.
Dude, I spent the first 7 years that I had what I call my magical awakening, doing nothing but trying to discover who and what I am, what my magic is. I didn't go into books trying to learn how to be this and how to be that and how to do this and how to do that. I was letting the spirit within guide me to my own truth. And dude, I mean, there just comes a point when it's like, first you don't know your fucking self. There are a million books out there that can tell you what you can be. But the idea is to be what you desire to be, what you want to be. But first you need to figure out doing what you actually are first.
Yes.
Instead of being told what we are. I mean, what the fuck were you? I mean, you try to remember, like, what the fuck were you before you were born? And I'm not talking about previous life. I'm talking about the pre-life stage. I mean, between lives. You know, what's death? Nobody remembers being born. No one remembers dying. And, like, try to figure that one out. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, life is a dream, and then when you die, you know, you wake up to another dream, but death is probably a dream, too. You know, there's more layers, you know, there's no ending with the path either, there's no fucking arrival point.
I'm trying to remember who said it. Dream within a dream, and it was, when all that you see is but a dream within a dream. And I swear that has stuck with me for 25 years.
Just
Dude,
endless
that has
layers,
stuck with me for years.
like an onion. Like those Russian, like, nesting dolls, you got like a million fucking layers.
Oh yeah.
It's funny that when you're sitting there and you open the magic circle and you automatically put yourself in that spiritual mindset and you leave your body and you're as vast as the cosmos itself. And that's when you realize that even what you see there is a reflection of a greater light behind it. And then there's one behind it, so forth and so on. And that's just, that's fucking powerful. If you can ever mentally reach that state where in ritual that's what's happening to you, that you realize that even what you're seeing, there's something greater than that beyond that. And not greater, but, you know, that's it, you know, it's even further outside of the box, so to speak. You know, that's when you really open yourself up to what they call the angles. And when everything is centered at you, you become that nexus. And there's nothing you cannot see, there's nothing you cannot know, and there's nothing that you cannot do.
Oh, it's beautiful.
One comment that, this one comment, pretty sure it was Cody who said it though,
Yeah.
about, what if, death's a dream, this isn't anything, too serious and stuff. It just kind of reminded me of this joke that I saw that, it was funny, but I did kind of get the point. It said, what if when you die, you just wake up holding a bong, surrounded by aliens asking you if it works?
So,
I'm gonna go get another drink.
oh my gosh.
Alright.
Sorry guys, it's been really nice talking to you, but I have to go
Yeah,
now.
I'm gonna have to, I have family contacting me right now, so.
Cool.
Well, guys, y'all have a great night.
We'll have to
You
do
too.
we'll
Great
have to
talking.
do another one, continue where we left off. I have some more Saturnian questions, but I missed my opportunity. All that working has
Yes,
been
of course.
slowing my brain down. I'm getting a little slow because I've been working so much.
Yeah, no, me too. See, when I first got, this week, I had, yesterday I just started my work with Jin. And so I'm a little rusty today. I've done 2 of the Thrones of Shaitan. And so I'm tired and ill-prepared today.
Right. Well, not that kind of work. I meant like my job has been
I've been awake
grinding
over
me-
24
grinding
hours.
me up. watching all the time.
Yep, that's what I do. Anyway, I look forward to the next one.
Sounds good.
Me too.
Catch you guys soon.
Later.
Bye.